Welcome back, everybody, to All Things Real Estate. We're here today with myself, Terry LaJoy at Keller Williams Realty, and then Sean from Oak Hill Acquisitions. And today we've got Casey St. Onge from ServPro.
How's it going, everybody? Casey.
So, Casey, tell us, what is ServPro and what do you do?
Yeah, so ServPro is one of the nation's leading restoration companies. And what I mean by that is we handle anything to do with mold, fire, and water damage. So, you come home, your carpet sounds a little bit squishy, and it shouldn't be squishy. You want to call me?
Okay.
Perfect. So, dig into that a little bit, and I need you to speak up a little bit so I can hear you, because I can't hear you. So, what else, water, fire, mold, that's a broad topic. Kind of break that down for us a little bit more as to what are the individual things that you do that is all encompassed in that.
Yeah, so I mean, it all depends on which type of issue you're dealing with, but typically, say you're dealing with a water damage issue, first we start with initial inspection, so we'll send somebody out, they'll come take a visual look at what you have going on, they'll take some pictures, we'll write up an estimate, detailed with those pictures, and typically we're able to turn that over to you within 24 to 48 hours, breaking down extraction, demolition, treatment, and then us getting out of your hair. And that goes, from issue to issue. It could be different for smoke issues. We're coming up on Thanksgiving, so that's the number one day for house fires.
Really?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Number one day for house fires in the country.
Oh my gosh.
So lots of cooking issues. People trying to do the turkey that may have not done it before is a common one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting. So, when you guys come in, you've done the estimate, now somebody wants you to come in and do the job. Are you able to do that while people live in their house? Do they have to move out? Do you guys cover the insurance pieces? How does all that next phase work?
Yeah, so typically it's based to their comfort. If the space is still livable, meaning that they've got a sink and they've got a bathroom, a lot of people tend to stay. That being said, sometimes insurance will cover the cost to put them up if the place is not livable. And sometimes even when that's offered, people like to stay in their home. And we're able to work around those people. We can do containment walls. We can move the machines. We try and make it as convenient for them while they're in their house, because at the end of the day, it's their house. It's not our place to be.
Right.
Would you say it's a large percentage of people that do choose to stay rather than get out?
I would say typically, yeah. A lot of people like to have an eye on things, like to check in. They like to see the daily progress of the job, because what we do is 90% visual. You get to really see the progress of our work every day. So lots of homeowners like to kind of peek in. They'll take a peek through the containment, talk to the crew over there. We appreciate it. We like connecting with those people while we're on the job site. It creates a little bit of trust with them. So, if we're there, say they have to let us in when they're not home, they know who they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So they're not worried about it.
So barring holidays, what would you say is the fire, everything like that? What's the most common calls do you get, or is it kind of a wide mix of everything?
I would say typically they fall under the mold, fire, and water category, but I've got calls for the craziest things you wouldn't even imagine. I've had people call me asking if I can fill a pool, which is not outside my scope. I'll figure it out. But I've had people calling me asking me if I can move a fridge or a grand piano. There's lots of stuff that we can do.
Okay.
There's sometimes things that we got to pull partners in for. But coming up on the winter season, we're going to start seeing a lot of these water damage calls. So it's going to be pipe bursts, appliance leaks, roof leaks, even ice dams. So it's going to be really water based, which typically means it's going to be a lot of emergency service.
Okay. And do you guys always have a crew on standby? Is it 24 hours? Because I'm new to all this.
Yeah, no, it is 24 hours. So we've always got 2 people on standby and then dispatcher as well. And we can pull more people if needed. It all depends on the size of the project, but we are a 24-hour service. So you have something at 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, we're available for you. We're here to help you out, either to be there physically or just answer questions.
I love that. Yeah, because I feel nothing bad happens at the opportune time at 9 in the morning when you can schedule stuff out. It's always oh, this happened at 7 o'clock at night and I had my pipe burst and now I got to deal with this and try to get it resolved as fast as possible.
Yeah. If we could schedule these conveniently, it would make my job a lot easier. So if people want to start scheduling their water damage for 1 or 2 in the afternoon, that would be great.
Probably doesn't work like that though most of the time.
No. It's a lot of the time it's least expected. Nobody really writes down in their calendar, I'm planning to have a fire in my kitchen today.
Yeah.
So, my goal is to be that resource on your most unexpected day. I'm somebody you trust you can call. I've got the information for you. And I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to hold your hand through the process, whether that be with insurance questions or questions about what do I do now? Where do I go? What do I do with my materials in the meantime? There's always something I can give you.
Nice. And so you guys work directly with insurance companies and will help folks kind of navigate that whole thing, it sounds like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very well versed in insurance. It's something we deal with almost every day. So we can kind of guide the customer through that process, tell them, all right, so this is who you're going to want to reach out to. This is who you need to get in contact with to make sure things are getting paid. You're going to want to stay up on this process, make sure you're checking your email. But we're able to kind of guide them along. And, even if they aren't getting responses from people that they feel like they need to speak to, there's other ways we can help them and kind of navigate them in other directions.
I love that. Cool.
So what's the craziest job that you've done?
We did a job for a daycare facility a couple years ago where me, my dad, and my brother were all in hazmat suits, and they had a flood in their basement. So they had a weekly diaper pickup. So they would store all their diapers in these blue bins that are about waist high in the basement.
I'm assuming these are spent diapers.
Oh yeah, they're very well used, well loved. And so they store all these in the basement, and then they get a weekly pickup. So they hadn't planned on having water damage, but they had water damage. So all these bins are now turned over into the water, and we're waist deep in these water damage, just diapers and feces everywhere. So. I've seen it all. There's not something you could call me with that I would be surprised by. We've done jobs where, we'll pull out 175 yards worth of trash, longer than a football field. It'll be trash as high, as the ceiling, as low as the bottom corners of the basement. It'll be everywhere in every crevice. And it takes a long time, but we'll find some crazy stuff in this house.
Wow. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
It was a sight. I've never seen something like that. I hope I never see something like that again. We talk about it almost every day. My brother doesn't work here anymore. He's a Marine now, but even with all the stuff that he goes through doing that, he still remembers that's one of the worst things I've ever had to do in my life.
But you are the people to call for that stuff.
Oh yeah. We're the people to call if your diapers are floating in the water, if your house is on fire. You can call me with pretty much anything, and I won't really be surprised. If it's cleanup related, whether it be, some sort of hoarding situation where you find somebody that's been living somewhere for a long time and got a lot of belongings, I can help you with that. Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit about that, because for what Sean and I both do, we run into it on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
So if we run into a hoarder situation, obviously we're going to be helping to take care of the people, but what does that look like from your side of things to clear that out and then do any remediation that needs to be after? Because a lot of times there's remediation that goes with that. It's not just getting a junk hauler in there and hauling everything away.
No, typically the hoarding situation is only the surface level issue. There's usually a lot of mold or water damage left behind, things that have just been neglected. So what we would do is we would start by doing an assessment. We'd go out, we'd take some pictures, and we'd kind of get a game plan together. Can we bring a dumpster here? Do we need to take these in our trucks and haul it back to the shop? And then we work with that space, and we kind of decide room by room how we're going to get this out of here in an efficient way. So where we only have to clean one time. You don't want to go back and clean all these different times. You want to do it efficiently, so the customer can turn that space over and use it how they'd like to, as fast as possible. So we drag all these things out of the room, we clear it, we take a good look at the walls and the floor. Then we can kind of see if there's any deeper issues. And we go about remediating. So whether that be, we need to cut the walls from 2 to 4 feet down, or we need to take a certain floor. If it's a hardwood floor that's been severely mistreated and super porous, mold all over it, looks gross, we'll take that out. But really we just want to get that space back to bare bones and get it as clean as possible, as sanitized as possible. That way, for somebody that's coming into that space, if they're buying the house or if they're starting to rent that space, it's a fresh start and it doesn't stink.
Okay.
The main issue is it stinks. It does stink every time.
Yeah.
So how do you get the smell out?
We do odor removal. So we use these things called vapor sharks. We have a couple other machines that we just stick in the house and we let it sit for sometimes a day, 2 days, 3 days, depending on the smell. Occasionally we have to remove material. So sometimes, if it's a smoking situation where you've been smoking in the apartment, that smoke smell isn't only in the drywall, but it's in the insulation, it's the material behind that. So sometimes you have to remove that material depending on how strong that smell is.
Wow. So you guys are going down to the studs sometimes, it sounds like.
Yeah, we'll go all the way down to the studs, especially sometimes like animal pee smell. Sometimes you have to go right down to the stud and use like a couple deep deodorizing agents on the studs themselves just to get that smell out. Yeah,
I mean, I've been in some pretty rough places before, and I can definitely agree that the smell is the worst. It's usually like the trash and everything else like that. It's like we can deal with that. Like we're equipped to deal with that, but the smell it's unique every time. But you're genuinely helping somebody out. Like when somebody's at that point, just like what we talk about, they really need that help. They need that service, and you are kind of their knight in shining armor to get that done.
Yeah, it makes the smell not bad. Like the initial wave will hate you, but when you remember that you're there on somebody's worst day, because typically nobody's very excited to get their property restored. That means something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
But we're there on their worst day to hold their hand through that whole process, and typically there's finances involved, so people start to get nervous. And this is it's a big process. This isn't something that's typically one and done day. So they really need a team that's well versed in it. They need somebody that can stick around and kind of be there for the long haul.
Yeah.
Now, you said something earlier about cutting the sheetrock 2 feet up. Can you explain that? Because I'm sure some of the folks that are going to watch this show don't understand why you have to do that. So what is the purpose of that? Because I see it all the time.
Yeah.
You go into houses and in the basement, it's 2 feet cut up, which gives me a clear indication that something was going on. Yeah. But explain why you do that and what that process looks like.
Yeah, so typically a 2 foot cut is what you're going to see when you have water damage. So you get water damage either coming from a boiler or a water heater somewhere it just shouldn't be, and it's coming in contact with the drywall. So when water comes in contact with drywall, within 48 hours, if the temperature is right and your luck is bad enough, you're going to start growing mold.
That quick?
Yeah. Within 48 hours, you can get growth.
Wow.
So typically, the reason that they do those 2 foot drywall cuts is to stop the drywall from moisture wicking and drawing that moisture up through the drywall, exposing it to potential growth.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then you got to treat that with an antimicrobial agent. Afterwards, you want to treat the studs and the remaining drywall to just make sure you're not seeing spots on the back of that later. Yeah.
Now, how long does the drywall have to stay out before you can put new drywall in? Because I've seen some people that cut the drywall and they leave it for a couple of days without dryers or any fans or anything else, and then they put the sheetrock back up. So kind of talk about that home remedy, if you will, when people do that.
Oh yeah, you definitely don't want to do that. So typically when you remove that material, it's still wet behind there. So you want to dry that out. So whether that be with fans or dehumidifiers, you want to get in there and you want to really make sure that all the moisture that seeped into that material that's not supposed to be there is out. You don't want to leave behind residual moisture, even if it's just in the corner. It might not seem like a big deal, but what can start with, even something, a small wet spot the size of your hand can turn into, tens of thousands of dollars worth of remediation. So it's really good to be vigilant. If you see those wet spots behind the drywall, make sure you dry it out before you put it back up any sort of material. You don't want to seal that problem in the wall because it's still there even if you can't see it.
And how do you know when it's dry enough to put the sheetrock back?
Yeah, so
obviously you guys do this, so you know that. But
absolutely,
there's going to be a lot of people that are going to watch this and be like, oh, well, I'll just let it dry out for, a week or so, and then it'll be dry, and it feels dry to touch with my hand.
Yeah, so we have specialized moisture meters, and we have things called FLIR cameras. So we go down there and we do thermal imaging of the basement so we can kind of see, all right, is this a cool spot? Is it a hot spot? Is it dry? Is it not? Typically, the average person probably doesn't have a thermal imaging camera, so that's something you can call me for. I'll more than happily come and use it at your house. I get a kick out of it. It looks like it's really cool. I have fun with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you say that's pretty common that, like you mentioned, where in New England we get wet basements? If you go down and you smell that like dampness, that mold, that mildew, is it a pretty safe bet that there's probably the start of mold somewhere?
Yeah. It's always a smell is usually a safe bet that something's not the way it's supposed to be, whether that be some sort of crack in the foundation, or they've got a leaky pipe down there. That's definitely something that they want to look into. At the very least, just having somebody to come take a look and say, got the smell. It doesn't smell like something I'm used to smelling or that I want to smell in my basement.
Yeah.
What's the solution for this? And sometimes it could be as simple as sealing some of the cracks in your foundation, trying to stop some of that water coming through. Or you might have a burst pipe you didn't know about, or something leaking that really shouldn't be leaking down there. It's just residual. I've seen where people have little leaks and they'll go on for a month right under the sink, and they have no clue because it's just a little leak. It's just drip, drip, drip. You would never notice, but it can turn into tens of thousands of dollars of damage just like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty, especially under the kitchen sink. It's an easy one because most people don't look in. They've got all their cleaning supplies and everything under there.
That's what mine looks like.
And a lot of that just gets, if it's like you said, if it's a small leak, it might get absorbed into the bottom of the cabinet, or into a paper towel, or
you got some plastic bags under there. Things just shoved right under there. You would never even look, and that's typically how it happens. Unless you're doing a real good inspection of all your pipes and under your sinks every year, you would never notice things like that.
No, I had a leak in my garbage disposal, and I opened the cupboard, and I caught it right away, thankfully. I opened the cupboard, and I just happened to notice there was a little tiny wet spot, and I went, pull everything out and look, and sure enough, there was just a little tiny leak, and we caught it really quick, so it didn't do any damage, but it was one of those things that if I hadn't seen it, it could have been a lot worse.
Oh, yeah, it could have been much worse, and thank God you caught it that fast. Typically, people usually aren't that lucky.
Great. So before we went live on the show, you were talking about something called efflorescence.
Yeah.
That's something that we see a lot.
Yep.
Most people have no idea what it is. Can you explain what it is and what it looks like, and is it something to be concerned about or not?
So typically people mistake it with white mold, which is why I know about it. And they'll call us out thinking, we've got this big mold issue, this huge, awful project. Typically that is not the case. Efflorescence is when there's water coming through the concrete and it's drawn salt up through, and it just leaves this white staining. It's not visually appealing, but it's not going to kill you. It's not really harmful. It's just salt. But if you don't want it in your basement, that's something we can take care of. We come through, we scrape it off, we clean the floor, and then we have somebody come behind us, either a foundation company or somebody who's specialized in sealant, and take care of that issue. But it's not harmful. It's not going to kill you.
It just doesn't look pretty.
No, it just doesn't look. It's not concrete. It's not supposed to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of the concrete.
Yeah, kind of.
It's the salt that's in the concrete.
Yeah.
So, what are some other things? And can you share a story of a project you've done without getting into specifics about people or anything like that? But share a project that you guys have done from start to finish that was maybe more in depth, that required a couple of different processes from you guys, because I know you do a lot of different things.
Oh, man. I mean, I can remember one specifically. We did a church down in Massachusetts 2-3 years ago, where we had to bring in scissor lifts inside the church to do the ceiling. They had fire damage. They were burning some candles in there, and some things caught fire, and so they had soot damage on the ceiling, and they didn't want to remove the drywall. So we've got to get up there to clean it, and the only way to do that was with a scissor lift. So me and a bunch of buddies I had working here at the time, and some of our crew chiefs and everybody, we got up on scissor lifts with some sponges, and we were up there. I'm terrified of heights. I'm so scared of heights. I didn't go on a roller coaster until I was 16. I was very, very, I'm all set.
So you want your feet on the ground?
Yeah, I want my feet very firmly planted on the ground. So scissor lift was not where I wanted to be, but somebody's got to do it. We were up there for a couple of days on scissor lifts, and that was something unique. Sometimes we find ourselves having to contain odd spaces, so we'll have to build jigsaw type contraptions with a plastic barrier. Sometimes we'll be doing demolition in areas that have very expensive equipment, and the customer doesn't want to move anything. So then we've got to figure out, how are we supposed to work around this equipment that could cost anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000, and we've got to keep that safe while we're doing demo. Right. So we'll build odd containment solutions. There's nothing that somebody could call us with that we couldn't come up with a solution. A lot of what restoration is problem solving. It's not just solving the problems that you can see, it's solving the problems that people might have in the thought process of the project. So a big part of it is just being able to think on your feet, being good at problem solving, and coming up with alternative solutions. Because there's not one way you can do everything, you know.
So it's not a one solution for everybody?
It's not a set and done, you know. SurfPro, unfortunately, isn't the only restoration company in the world. So, you know, there's going to be other professionals that do things different ways. And that's not to say, you know, that might not be the right way. But what you'll find with a lot of these projects is there's lots of ways to do different things.
Right.
Whether it be with mold, fire, water damage, there's always a different approach we can take to best suit our customers.
Okay.
So when you were talking about clean, this is just my own curiosity.
Yeah.
Like, do you have to use for the smoke remediation, or like the soot? Is that like a special chemical that you have to treat it with, or is it? I know you mentioned like scraping stuff off before. How do you go about that?
Yeah, so it all depends on how severe the damage is, how bad the smell is, how bad the fire damage is. But typically with soot and smoke, you'll see a lot of people try and just paint over it. You can do that if you like smelling like burning wax all the time or candles. That gets rid of the surface issue. You don't have to look at it, but the soot smell is still in that drywall, and it's in that insulation. It's probably in the studs. So the right thing to typically do would be to remove that material. You go down to the studs and you clean that with a couple different solutions, some rags. A lot of people, the big mistake they make when they see soot is they try and wet a rag and scrape it around, and it makes it super inky. It's everywhere, and you're typically just making the problem worse.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if somebody has smoke damage, do not try to deal with it yourself, is what I'm gathering.
Don't try to deal with it yourself. It's best to call a professional, because there also could be contaminants in the air. That's the other thing. A lot of the times when we're on these job sites, the place is not somewhere safe to be. So we have to bring HEPA filters with us. We have to have HEPA filters on our guys. We got to make sure we're taking care of ourselves so we can continue to do the work that we do.
Right.
So if you're in a situation where you're sitting somewhere with soot or fire damage, you want to call a professional. You don't want to risk your health, especially if you've had, any issues with asthma or anything like that in the past. Soot and mold and water damage, it can all agitate those issues for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you guys are using HEPA filters to come in and treat the issue, and somebody's living in that sounds like severe medical issues down the road for people.
Yeah. You really, your home and your business it's a space that you're going to be in a lot between the two of those places. You don't want those places being unsafe for you to breathe.
Yeah.
You need to be breathing for a long time. You kind of need these lungs for a while, so it's good to be taking care of them. It's good to have those spaces well filtrated. Even if you just put an air filter in your room, it's good to have something that's kind of cleaning the space that you're breathing in.
I like that.
And definitely no water on soot, huh?
No water on soot. Don't do that. It'll make it so inky. It'll look like a pastel painting. You don't want to do it. It's a big mess. I've made the mistake myself before I worked here. So, you learn as you go and pick up these little tips and tricks. So, if you've had an experience in the past where you've tried to do some home restoration and it didn't go your way, don't feel bad about it. Like, it happens to everybody. We get people calling pretty frequently who sometimes might try and you do the Google method before they give us a call, and that's okay. People are entitled to try and give it a whack.
Right. So one thing that just kind of popped in my head is a puffback, because we're talking about soot and that. Can you explain what a puffback is? Because some people might hear it and be like, what is that?
So I believe that's when the furnace kicks back when it's starting, and it'll spit soot all through the home. Typically it'll go all through the HVAC system, and then you're toast. It'll be everywhere. When soot gets in your HVAC system, it's a big mess. You got to clean the inside of that HVAC system, but also that means that it's probably throughout your entire house. Soot travels very, very well. So you could have a fire, at the house next door to you, and you'll find soot in your attic because it'll travel through the vents in the sides. It'll travel through any cracks soot can get into. It's getting in there, and it's going to make it smell. Yeah.
So a puffback is not something that you should DIY yourself.
No, don't DIY a puffback. You definitely don't want to do that. You want to call a professional company to come in with HEPA filters and the right cleaning materials to make sure you're not getting residual smoke damage. You don't want that hanging around your HVAC system. Some people are using hot air through the winter, blowing around soot with hot air in it. You're breathing that in all winter. You're probably not going to feel very good.
Right. And probably fair to say they should call their HVAC person too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Call whoever does their heating repairs for them and get them in there, because if it's doing that, there's very likely something wrong with that system as well.
Yeah. I mean, I encourage people to check in with their plumber and their HVAC people every year. It's something you can do that it'll save you so much trouble in the long run, especially around the winter time. Just having them come do a check around the home and saying, things look good, am I in good shape? You could save yourself so much trouble just by doing a little bit of checkup before. It doesn't take hours and hours of your time. Just having somebody come verify that things look how they're supposed to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Casey, thanks so much for being on the show with us. We're going to wrap it up, and we'll see everybody back next week.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for coming in.